Please, people, and join Bob Pride as he leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right.
Thank you, Bob. It is with great sadness that we open our program today. Many of you know Bob and Helen Lewis. Bob made several presentations here. He's a member of our board, and he normally leads the Pledge of Allegiance. On Friday evening, February 27th, Bob and Helen's daughter, Carolyn, and son-in-law, James Carcazzi, were killed in a horrific car accident in Swansea. They were hit by a car that ran a red light. Please take a moment in silent prayer and remember Bob, Helen, and their extended family. Our presentation today is supporting the Allied victory, the Yankee Division in World War I. Our speaker is Dan Leclerc. Dan earned a master's degree in history from Northeastern University. He taught high school history in the school districts and later served as an administrator for 12 years. He retired as a deputy superintendent, assistant superintendent for the Ashland Public Schools. Dan is a graduate of the Massachusetts Military Academy, where he served as a second lieutenant executive officer for an infantry company. Currently, Dan teaches in the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute of UMass Boston and frequently lectures to libraries, to community groups, and to historical societies. Please welcome Dan Leclerc.
Well, thank you very much. I'm seeing a lot of old friends here. That's wonderful. And I'm still mad about World War I. Not mad, I mean mad about the phenomenon of how well the Yankee Division has done. People don't realize the Yankee Division is one of the greatest things that ever happened to this country. And the more I study it, I've been to Europe. I've been to Europe for 10 years. I almost every year went to Europe. I had to go to Paris though. Geez, what a bummer. For 2 days. But after that, I hit the road. And I learned a lot about what America can do for the world. I'm very proud. I'm very excited about this because the Yankee Division had it together in very, very interesting ways. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so do I hit the right hand side here?
Yep,
Okay.
you hit it just twice.
Okay.
Yep, one more time.
Oh, all right, what's this? So it's my opinion, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's all my opinion. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna start. Okay, I want you to know that the statue of the doughboy, what is known as the doughboy, men who fought in the war. The wonderful statue at Amesbury, Mass. If you're ever near the ocean up there, check it out. It's a beautiful statue. And it's kind of an inspiration. So I always like to start with that. Okay, how do we get into the war? How did this happen? We had a president, Woodrow Wilson, who was a pacifist, for God's sakes. Didn't want to go to war. Went in kicking and screaming. But when he got into it strong. Interesting guy. He shifted a lot. But what happened? Well, there's a problem with that. I can't take my boat to London anymore. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I mean, the idea that one country could have that kind of power is startling. Okay. Now, also, the Lusitania is sunk now. A lot of people died. 1,260 people died. Well, what you probably don't know is you see that little notice on the left-hand side? That was published by the by the Imperial German Embassy. Said, hey, you don't want to take this boat. And if you read it, a lot of people didn't read it and died. Some people saw it and said, oh, I'm not taking that boat. But I just put that in there. It's a kind of a funny contradiction. Why is the German company saying, get off that boat? I just think that warfare creates all these ironies. I just wanted to throw that in. Okay. All right. Now, then Woodrow Wilson finally wakes up, because what he finds out is that the German people, or the German military political organization, says, hey, listen, we'd like to, Germany would like to have people in this country support us, and in exchange, we'll give them Arizona, Texas, New Mexico. Well, wait a minute, time out. That's a little much. Okay, so we have to give those states away in order to keep the peace, and Woodrow says enough with that. So Woodrow finally gets religion. Okay, we got no fooling around with this stuff. Woodrow Wilson's an interesting guy. He's a guy who was passive about, I don't want to go to war, it's stupid, I don't want to get involved. Like right now, we're in a situation where we're getting involved in international stuff. Where the hell's that going? You know, and for a while he was like that. But then he said, wait a minute, maybe I ought to put my finger in the water here, check this out. And he did the right thing. And what the thing was, I want to say this about Woodrow. Woodrow was a smart guy. He was the president of Ivy League University, Princeton, I think. Smart guy. But he got into it, said, well, we got to have soldiers and we got to get it done well. So he creates a whole new concept called the draft. Well, the draft was a kicking up butt for a lot of people. All of a sudden, people are getting drafted. You don't like it, too bad, you got to go. But he did something else very smart. This was, if you remember that famous movie, New York, the Irish in New York City. Remember the Irish? They used to be treated like some people are now. You know, they were beat up, they were yelled at. Remember, Irish don't need to apply. So there was some, yeah. Okay, so Irish people couldn't get a job. What does Woodrow do? Creative guy. I'll tell you what. You guys join. You Irish dudes, we're not going to give any constitutional rights to citizenship. Join the army, and when the army's over, when the war is over, you're automatic. You're now a citizen of the United States. I thought that was bold, interesting, and also creative. So all of a sudden, a whole bunch of Irish guys, in fact, if you read, the more I read about all kinds of Irish people were heroes in World War I. Well, they got there because they got promised citizenship. Not a bad deal, I think. I just want to throw that in. Every once in a while, politicians are creative. No, not too often, but lately anyway. Okay, so move on. Okay, now the country mobilizes. Okay, the country mobilizing is complicated, very complicated. There's stuff here. I do a whole thing called the human face of the Great War. I'll come back sometime and do that. I'm doing not today. But the human face of the Great War is the human damage that war created is unbelievable. One of which is, remember Belgium? Okay, Belgium, what's that guy doing? He's dragging some young girl to do something that's not nice. And so what the Germans, and I have trouble talking about this because there might be some of you here who are of German origin, and I feel a little bit nervous about it, but I can't just hide the truth. The Germans were telling their boys, hey, listen, you soldiers have to have a little bit of psychological, need a little bit of relief. It was okay to rape girls to get relief. I think it's a little screwy. There's something about, something religious about that bothers me. And I always thought Germany had a solid background, but they wanted to win so bad that they were willing to tell their soldiers it's okay to mess around with girls. And that's what that means. That's a scary thing. Okay, now we go to the halt to hunt. Then we go to another direction. Now it's going to be, let's hate the Germans. And that's the trouble with warfare, the politics of warfare. You go from one extreme to another. Now all the Huns are bad. Well, the Huns are not all bad. So that's the, well, I taught high school. I said, listen, there's a lot of dimensions to warfare. Okay, you can't just hate everybody also, because the Germans, if you remember, were wonderfully creative people. There are a lot of great musical people and philosophers and engineers. And hey, listen, guess what? The railroads would not have gotten built in this country without the Germans. The Germans invested billions of dollars in this country in the railroads. They helped build this country. In fact, my son went to a school in the Midwest, University of Iowa, Iowa State. Anyway, he went to Iowa and he said, all these Germans around here. And we used to go to a German restaurant about 2 miles away from their school. The Germans were big contributors to this country. See, that's the complexity of it. Germans were the German. In fact, if you do, I did some work on, I did some work on people who were accused of prisoner of war. We had a lot of prisoners of war in this country, Fort Devens, all over the country. There were a lot of prisoners of war in Iowa. Guess what? Here's what happened. Some people, there are a lot of people who are psychologists, and they studied this thing with the Germans. What they found was when the Germans came to this country, and they were saying, hey, let's go to the dance in the local community, be some girls. The Germans forgot the war. No problem. All of a sudden, the Germans in hordes adopted America. That's the flexibility. That's the viability of life and that kind of thing. It's a fascinating thing. You talk to Germans in the Midwest, they love this country, and they accepted it, and they forgot the fact that they lost the war. So everybody, you go to the Midwest, and everybody talks German. They love Germany because they flourish from it. So the people forget warfare because when it's over, it's done. Thank you very much. And they're trying to find ways to make life be more reasonable. Okay, that's a little bit of sociology I'm throwing out here. All right, now, the reason I'm here to talk. Yankee Division is organized. It's the first division to be organized, first across the water, first to take the battle line. Why? Because of Major General Clarence Edwards. Clarence Edwards was a very interesting guy. He was a very clever, innovative guy. He was very creative. He was able to find ways. Pardon my voice, but I'm doing the best I can. Anyway, what happened is with Clarence Edwards is he said, if we want to win this war, we got to get there quick. Get there first. Don't mess around. Don't waste a lot of time at Fort Devens doing pointless drills up and down the field. We want to go see some real war. So what does he do? He makes a relationship with General Passaga. General Passaga is the equivalent of a regiment in France who had been fighting for 3 years. Ooh, what an idea. Let's learn from them. They know a little bit more about what they're going to do at Fort Devens. That's the creativity that Edwards had. I think it's very interesting. All right. Well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is Yankee Division organizational chart. And it's basically typical. I just want you to know we had an organizational chart and it was some rationality behind it. I could spend 20 minutes wasting time on this, but you get the idea that it got organized. It had an administration. It had different dimensions. It had field artillery, blah, blah, blah. And the most important thing to see here is there are 4 regiments. First regiment is the 1st Infantry Regiment, called the Irish Regiment, Boston, guess what? Then the 2nd regiment was basically Vermont, Maine, all the Hicks, that's me, I'm from New Hampshire. And then there was the 2nd Maine, 103rd Infantry was 2nd Maine, and also New Hampshire. And then the 4th Infantry, that's the one that watch. The one from Springfield and Holyoke. That's the one that did the day. I'm going to talk a lot about them. They were incredible regiment, and they did some amazing things, and I'm going to get to it in a minute. Okay. All right. No training. Okay, so they were training originally. I'm going back a little bit to the point. They were training in Boxford, Framingham, Westfield, Reading, Bristol, Connecticut, Quonset, Port Royal, and Northeast France. That's the one you want to watch. They were doing all that training. Well, training getting up in the morning and running around and making believe you're a soldier with a make-believe gun and all that stuff doesn't cut it. Northeast France, that was his idea. Let's learn from the real guys. Been fighting for 2 years. Oh, now there's people are gonna learn some stuff. And that's what's the difference between him. Because Pasiga, wait till you see what Pasiga did. It's very interesting. I'm very proud of this. Now, I'm French, so I got a little bit of bias here. Once in a while, the French have good ideas. You know, not all the time. Okay, now this is a simple, stupid thing, but the 26th Division had 4 infantry regiments, and they had to get those men across. Well, what does he do? He goes to Boston. His father had been a businessman in Cleveland, although he's born in Springfield, the local guy. But his father said, you need some business stuff. Talk to the business people. Go downtown to Boston and hang out with the industrial and financial guys. Talk to them. Let's get the hell out of here. How do we do it? Let's get the ships we need. Let's organize it. Get it organized and get the boys the hell over there as quick as possible. And that's the way to win this war. So I'm throwing this up. It's a joke. The bullets weren't that nice. But that's about, if you think about it, that's about how many took. You need about 5 of those big boats to carry the Yankee Division. It's a little bit classy, but you know, I'm doing that as a little bit of a joke. Okay, now, we're ready to go. And the boys are going over there. Is this gonna work? Hopefully, the music. Okay, now you have to sing now. If you don't sing, you have to go. You gotta be part of the action. Okay, let's go.
Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you and me, everyone for liberty. Hurry right away, no delay, start today. Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad. Tell your sweetheart not to pine, to be proud her boys in
Oh there, send the word, oh there. That the Yanks are coming, the drums coming everywhere. So everywhere, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there. Okay. Okay, that's all we needed that. Enough rock our stuff. We have a little fun. Heavy on warfare. Okay, now, okay. What makes the Yankee Division so special? What's the big deal? So what? Yankee Division. I'll tell you why. Because they have hometown support. And that's what our political I've got involved with, as well as Clarence Edwards. So the volunteers are from hometowns. They know each other. They have local priests and rabbis and all that stuff. They're going to war with their buddies, the guys they went to high school with and grammar school. It's a big deal. So they go with a spirit that you'll see over and over again will win battles because they were together. They loved what they were doing. They were getting something out of it socially, spiritually, all that stuff. And they also had courage and enthusiasm. I just think it's important to make that point. What's happening here? Oh, we okay?
Thank you.
What's going on? Technology will do it every time. Okay. Can I move?
Keep going.
Okay. All right. Now, this is another hypothesis I have that I tout a lot. And people get tired of hearing me say it, but I'll bore you with it because I really believe it. Okay, we get to Saint-Nazaire. I'm French. I've been all these places. Saint-Nazaire is it's about a couple hundred miles to Neufchâteau. It's actually 300 some miles. They get to a place called Nazaire and they get off the boat. Now, a lot of these women get off, it was 2.5 years into the war, 1918, or late 1718. All of a sudden, all the women come out. Women who've lost their husbands, sons, grandfathers, and they're all lined up when the boys come. Well, the boys, the American boys, this is a big deal. They love the American boys because the American boys are going, yeah, yeah, and they're singing and all that stuff. But here's the other big deal. The American boys were 1 foot taller on the average than the German soldiers and the French soldiers. Because remember, there was 130 years of the American Midwest, which is one of the greatest producers of grain, wheat, and soybeans and all that stuff. And that stuff was being shipped across the country for 130 years, going down the Erie Canal, going down the Hudson, and going by railroad to Boston. These boys have been well fed for 130 years. Whoa, they're bigger, they're sharper, they're more eager. Oh, and the women women were freaking out. Yeah, my God. I've been taught now all over the place how we feed our people makes a difference. And how a world that has a balanced economy between business, technology, and food production, so food production that makes a difference. And boy, this is the best example of that I've ever seen. Okay, enough with that food stuff thing. Okay, now, the American presidents, I'm going to do this real quick because I'm going to get more detail just to give you an outline. The American presidents was in these following places. Pontigny, which was on the Somme Valley, which was mostly fought by the British, not by Americans, and then the Chemin des Dames, and then the Toul Front. Now, Toul Front is where we made the Toul Front. It's a 6-mile front. It's a super little 6-mile front. It's unbelievable. The Toul Front changed the whole war game in so many ways. And then, of course, after that, Saint Mihiel salient. We did a hell of a job at Saint Mihiel salient. Oh, do you all have a map? All right. And then finally, the Meuse-Argonne. Meuse-Argonne was not much fun. Meuse-Argonne was the last battle. Was a slow, endless slog all the way up to our German border. We never thought we'd get out. We stumped it, but we had to go through it. So it wasn't fun. It wasn't a fun ride. It was a nasty, tiresome, but we had to do it because it had to be done. So that's a quick take on the war. All right. Now, I like to quote this guy. This is my favorite writer of, I don't want to screw this over. Oh, I can't get away from the desk. I'm trapped at my desk. All right. I just need to show this book. This is a book that it's almost destroyed. I've read it about 25 times. This is the best book on the Yankee Division, in my opinion. Look at this, it's all worn out. It was written by Frank Sibley. Frank Sibley was a Boston Globe reporter who went the entire war every day. He was with the troops. He's a hell of a writer. And he's got a sense of humor. He loves the troops. And this is one of the best military books I've ever, and I can't find a damn copy there. This is worth $500. You know, I pay $500 to replace this like in New York minute. It's a wonderful book. But he really captures it. What he says is, and this is what's interesting. When he was heading for Neuchâtel from training by the French, this is what he said. And this is a typical response from this guy. Their irresponsible, irrepressible, ingenious, hell-raising cheerfulness is in full bloom. The Yankee Division boys were psyched. They were into it. For them, for the war, for the country, I can't explain the psychology of this whole thing. And that's what makes Yankee Division different. It has a specialness to it. And I'd like to talk about that. Okay. Moving on. Now we're in Neuchâtel, France, where we're being trained. We're being trained by the French, by General Passigat in another regiment. Also, we are getting involved in new stuff like French 35mm howitzer. By the way, the French, I studied artillery in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And that is probably the best piece of artillery ever created at all time. Why? Because it was created by a couple of genius scientists who did it. And nobody knows the secret. It's always been we don't know why. You know how most artillery pieces are breech loaded. Not this one. This one has two guys, boom, boom, feeding it down the front. Much faster. You can get more rounds off per minute than if you do breech loading. Simple idea, but it creates enormous heat inside. How do they solve the heat problem? We'll never know. One of the best kept secrets ever is how the hell do they get that? Because what they would do was saturation bombing. They would just boom, shoot, fire, fire, fire. Because you see these piles of used up ammo piling up. Oh, and they would saturate the enemy with enormous amount of firing power, even though it's not a big gun. 75 is pretty small, but it was highly effective. Now, if you ever want to see two of them, if you go to Leominster, Massachusetts, it's worth a trip. I got pictures of them. I should have put them in here. Leominster, Massachusetts has two 75 millimeters French, and you should see them. They're perfect. And there's also one in Massachusetts. I'm forgetting where it was. Anyway, but they're around here and there. Every once in a while I see them. The French 75, in many ways, help win the war. And that's part of, I talk about that because technology means something. You know, these people who created that 75 millimeter also were geniuses. And we still don't know, we still can't figure out what it is. It's a well-kept secret. But, okay, now you've all got this map. Okay, so I give it to you so we can take it home and go to bed with it. The better things to do in your life. Anyway, basically there are 5 different major places. The first one is not terribly important because it was chemin des dames. Anybody know what chemin des dames means?
Yes.
What does that mean? Well, anybody know French? Chemin des dames? Places where women walk. Well, why did they do all the rich women from Paris, when things got rough, whatever politically or whatever, would take the chemin des dames to another place in France? It was like an escape valve for women. It's a stupid story, but that's what it's called. And I've been on a chemin des dames. It's pretty nice. Now that's where our soldiers went first. They didn't do very much. They sort of just hang around and they practiced. They went out, did a few small raids, occasional confrontations with small German groups. But they were able to, the point was to have soldiers be together and learn how to get up in the morning and do stuff. Not terribly important stuff, but it had a kind of like, this is the genius of Clarence Edwards. Let's have these guys together. Let's get to know each other. And they basically unified that. Okay, number 2 is, now that's the big one. That's the big one. That's the one. That's that's the one that turned the tide of war. And it was only a 6 mile wide place, which is off the Mont sur la Forêt. I'm going to talk about my first experience with that. Let's move on. The third one is Chateau Thierry. Chateau Thierry was not great. Chateau Thierry was a slog. It was a tough war because the Germans were strong in that area. So we didn't do too well. We did the best we could, the best that could be done. But about halfway through, we had to have the big red one from New York come in. And that's where John Pershing was a smart guy. John said, hey, listen, I love you guys, but it ain't working for you. Let's get the New York guys in here. Well, the New York guys, basically, that's the 1st Division, the New York Division. And okay, we'll save it for you. And that's where you always need a big guy who says, let's do the right thing. And he did that. But Chateau Thierry was not fun. It was a tough slog. And it was a lot of people died. And then number 4 is, I can't see from here. There's, I don't see it. Oh, Verdun. The Verdun area not Verdun itself. See, Verdun was all done. Well, so, a thing to say, but Verdun had happened the year before. And the two biggest the two most costly battles of all time was 1917, 16, 17. And it were the Somme, well, Verdun first, because it was 7 months of artillery fire back and forth. A lot of people died. And then they changed the subject further down. They created the land war, trench warfare. Let's try trench warfare. What a good idea that is. Well, it was as bad as the old one. A lot of people died at the Somme to no avail. It was a useless thing. So that was very frustrating. That was a frustrating year in the war. Okay, and finally, the last one is the Saint-Mihiel salient was not far from Verdun. That was a big victory for the Yankee Division, a big one. And then, okay, so that's why what I call this. All right, now I'm going to three major turning points. Some of them are prior, some of them are simultaneous. All right, if you look at the first arrow, shooting up to Amiens. Anybody been to Amiens? Big, most beautiful cathedral in the world, right? Big, huge cathedral. And Amiens is a tight little city. It's very kind of like Dorchester, you know. Been there? It's very tight. It's like having a battle in Dorchester. Very tight, small streets, like neighborhoods. Well, when they fought at Amiens, Amiens was fought by the British and the French. Now, the British and the French, basically, that was the first time they did a number on the Germans. Germans had never been in urban warfare. Urban warfare is a whole different world. And they did a hell of a job in that urban place. I've been there a number of times. It's an interesting place. Anyway, because they did that, one of the big German generals, who said, we got a problem. We're not going to make it. That the ability of the French and the English to really do it to stop the Germans in Amiens changed the whole vocabulary of the war. And that's when one of the great leaders, whose name I forget right now, anyway, he said, whoa, this is not good. This is turning in a wrong direction. And in some ways, smart Germans should have said, enough. They probably shouldn't, but they hung in and they paid the price for hanging in. And that's funny. Sometimes it's good to just, when you're not going to win a battle, get out. Okay, so now the next one is Belleau Wood. Belleau Wood, Chateau Thierry were tough, but they were still victories. Not good, they weren't easy. They were hard fought victories, but they were. And then the Saint-Mihiel Southern Defensive, that was a massive victory. That's one of the best victories we've ever done. It was phenomenal what we did, what the boys did. Okay, that's a quick run. All right. To repeat again, to repeat over and over, so you get the sense of where we were. Chemin des Dames, you all know what that is. They're all hanging around not a very active, but it was kind of pre-training for warfare. And then the Toul front, that's the front, that's the big one. That's the big one that we're famous for. And then the Aimar offensive, that was the end. The end was a slog. It took forever to get up there, to go all the way up the Meuse River and Maine. And then the Battle of St. Mihiel was a tremendous victory for the Yankees. And the Meuse-Argonne offensive was very interesting. I'm going to go into that a lot because we did something very creative. I'll show it. I'll give you a better thing about that. I think we'll skip. Okay, up in the most of the that's the one is one of the most famous ones for us. Okay, let's move on. All right, now the 4 critical attack and repulse events against the Storm Battalion was in that area in Apremont, Seicheprey, Schliere, Exhiberay, and Lamazon, which is altogether 6 miles wide. That's how wide that is. It's this little area. But what they have is, there's a big hill here. When I saw it 2 days ago, you guys showed it to me, I went, oh my God, I'm in the same place. It was a big, strong place. It was high, it was rocks, and the Germans had dug in big, and they trained and trained. And these are the Storm Battalion, these are strong, these are the best of the German soldiers. And they're strong. So what happened to them is, they're dug in for 3 years. They're getting bored now. We need to fight here, we need to do something. So along come the Americans. Well, the Americans come. So what do they say? Boy Scouts, don't worry about them. We'll blow them out 10 minutes. They got arrogant. They got lazy. Classic example of what people do. Also, there's two sides to that. They didn't know these boys were kick ass. These boys were trained, they were hungry, they knew what to do, and they did it. So what happened is, in each one after another, they stopped. So what happened is the Germans came down from it came literally down. And first they would do is at 4 o'clock in the morning, the Germans would bombard the American units. These kids had to suffer through that. It was horrible. Then they would attack around 9 o'clock in the morning. And they did that. But no matter what they did, they just never pushed the Americans, the Yankee Division boys back. In fact, the second one, Sèche-Pré, which is like, about a mile and a half from home. The Sèche-Pré guys, all the guys there's a whole joke about this. The guys in the kitchen came out with their cleavers and like killing the Germans. I mean, even the guys in the kitchen were tough dudes. It's a wonderful story. Okay, and then same thing for the last two. That they, one after another, 1, 2, 3, 4, stopped the Germans. And the Germans were, oh my God, they couldn't believe it. These are their best troops, been training for months. What's going on? In fact, what happened at Berlin, we find out later on, when we did some research, I didn't, but some other people did. When they did research and found that there were communications that were going back to Berlin saying, we got a problem. We got a problem. That the Americans, they're good. That's why there was an armistice, because they were ready. They knew there's no way we're going to win this damn war. So we better sue for an armistice and not make stupid deals. And that's why they all met in a little railroad car, 7 miles out of Paris. And they all sat, both generals went, okay, all right, done, we're done. Nobody's to blame. No, there's no, just end the damn thing. I lived with that my life. I grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire. And I'm French Canadian. If I was French Canadian as you could possibly be. And my parish, Saint Augustin, was given every state got from the French government, got a replica of that car. As a thank you, they call it a thank you car. And I used to go to that when I was a kid. My father would say, look at that. Our parish, that was my parish, French parish. And that was the symbol of the French saying to the Americans, thank you very much for saving our life. And it was a big deal. It was always so meaningful to me to see that. And it's still there. You want to go to Manchester, check it out. It's the Saint Jean Baptiste off of Bremer Street. Take a left, take a right turn, and then Rock River, and there it is. Okay. My father used to drive by there like, he was so proud he was French Canadian. Okay, so that's all the little stories now. Okay, let's move on. So now, the next thing that happens is, now, this is a personal story. I have a quirk. It's personal quirk. I always do the opposite of what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do when you study France in the war, you're supposed to start on the west side and move to the east, which is how the war went. It kind of went in that direction. Oh, not me. I'm the oddball Canuck who does things his own way. So I go to Upper Mall first, which is the other side. I swear to God, you won't believe this. I walk into this place. Should I walk with this? No, I'm not too far. Okay.
Yep.
I get so excited about this. This is when I really got turned on to this whole thing. I walked into Upper Mall. And I'm French. You know, I know how to speak French. So I tell the guys, I show them my wallet, Leclerc, Daniel Leclerc, they go nuts. Ah, they hug me, the whole freaking thing. They go nuts. I'm French. Oh boy, they couldn't stop talking. So they carry me. They carry me, literally pick me up. And I said, what the hell are they gonna do? What are they taking me? They're gonna throw me in a river? I don't know. What the hell's going on? I get to this place and it says, Place Holyoke. Holyoke, Mass. Hello. And they said, they couldn't pronounce Massachusetts. Was that the Massachusetts? I said, yeah, Holyoke. She said, Massachusetts. Oh, well, for them. Holyoke that's the last division. That's the fourth division, the fourth regiment that won that battle. And they'll never forget. And then the other thing they say, I won't go into it too much right now, is I'll show a quick picture of it. I'm going to do a teaser at the end. Anybody hear of a woman called Belle Skinner? Nobody heard of Belle Skinner? Oh my God, I'm going to make you a week. Go on, now that you've heard my lecture, go on Wikipedia and put BELLE SKINNER. It'll blow your mind. Belle Skinner is the wife of a very wealthy, remember, the Holyoke Pass used to be a major industry for cloth making. And she had no kids. And she was, you know how much she was? Decent. She was the first true feminist in America. And she created women's discussion groups in Holyoke. I mean, this woman is beyond belief. But no one knows about it. I got the best secret in America. Okay. So Belle Skinner says, okay, I'm going to visit, that town. She visits this town and says, oh my God, the Germans have been doing all kinds of bad things to these people for the last 3 years. Enough with that. So she rebuilds the hospital and and food and starts building schools. She spends what then was millions, was now be billions. And she redid 10 towns within the 20-mile area. And she became a heroine. In fact, there's a place she built called Hatton Chatel, HATTON CHATEL. And before I die, I'm going to go there. I want to stay in a Belle Skinner suite because it's a beautiful part of Paris. That's my goal. I might die there, but that's good. If I die there, I'll be happy. But Belle Skinner was a character. And that's what came out of this. Holyoke. You talk to, are there any women here who went to Mount Holyoke? Okay, you talk to women who went, they all, Belle Skinner, oh my God, she was something else. She was an addition. She got so interested in the war. And she also went to Vassar, and she spoke perfect French. And guess what she done? I'm just throwing that out. Interesting story. Okay, so I get there. So they drag me across, these guys, and say, oh, Place Holyoke. All right. Oh my God. It has a fountain going back and forth. So that's all about Holyoke. We're celebrating those boys at Holyoke that died here. And they were so excited about it. That's my first one. I think it's the first time when I got it. I got a fever about the Yankee Division. This is one of the greatest stories I've ever experienced. I've experienced it from these guys, these funny guys who dragged me over there. I'll never forget it. Okay, now, here's a quote, wonderful quote. This is General Pasiga, who became a good friend of our leader. And he says it was the Yankees, not the Germans, who showed the true fighting edge throughout those long 3 days of ding-dong wrestling. French General Pasiga when awarding a regimental croix de guerre for the 104th Infantry, which is the western one, which is in Springfield, Holyoke. I am proud to decorate the flank of the regiment, which has shown such fortitude and courage. I am proud to decorate the flag of a nation which has come to our aid to fight for liberty. this is a powerful kind of thing that he's saying. This is a small town, well, not a small city in the western part of our state. Okay, now, just so you know, if you don't know this, get on a bus right now, get the hell down there. Go down to Boston, go to the State House, on the third floor, right-hand side, which is the ocean side. There is the statue, a big, huge painting to commemorate that event. And a woman comes out, she gives you an hour-long talk on what happened and who the artist who, they got one of the best artists in the country to do that. We're sitting on top of it. How many of you have seen it? Right, good, you've seen it. You should all get up tomorrow morning, get a bus, go down. Okay, all right. Now, this is a kind of summary thing. Rare black and white. This is unusual. I don't often find stuff like this. It just happened that I found a black and white, a real-time video of what happened in that area. A rare, it was at Bois Brûlé, which is a term they use for the whole four towns. Site of actual fighting in the Toul sector of France with a tense battle between 4 German battalions. Okay, now this is a hard. You have we'll turn that. The sound might be a little shaky here, but just look at the visual. This is black and white in real time. This is real men dying.
The Yankee Division was assigned a 15-mile-long segment of trenches that at one end skirted the village of Apremont-la-Forêt. Although totally destroyed during the war, Apremont-la-Forêt was rebuilt in the 1920s. Only one wartime structure survives. Near the church is a concrete pillbox built by the German army. It now functions as a very robust tool shed. In the woods overlooking the village, the German trenches are still surprisingly intact.
When the Yankee Division occupied Apremont in the spring of 1918, the Germans had been there for over 3 years. The German lines occupied a ridge system above the village. This ridge today is still honeycombed with their fortifications. The Germans had 3 years to construct really robust defenses, as evidenced by this trench. This trench is literally cut through solid bedrock. And cut into the sides of the trench were these caverns. These caverns where the men could take shelter from shell fire or from the weather, and these caverns are still intact. In contrast, the French were in front of the village. They occupied a flat plain. This flat plain had a high water table. The trenches were shallow, mucky, and muddy. The level of sanitation in these trenches left a lot to be desired. These were the trenches that were occupied by the Yankee Division. So I have the Yankee Division facing the Germans from relatively poor fortifications, and the Germans sitting above them from these really robust fortifications. And that's the way the situation was in the spring of 1918.
Near the trenches, field kitchens were set up. Bread was delivered from military bakeries far behind the lines. Twice baked, it was very hard and nearly inedible. The men dug out bunks in the sides of flooded trenches. Trench life wasn't so bad, that is, if you didn't expect much. Then on April 10th, expectations changed greatly. The Germans attacked the American lines near Apremont in force. A devastating artillery barrage of gas and explosives was followed by a force of 800 attackers. Thus began the 4-day Battle of Bois Brûlé, or Burned Woods, a fight that was closer in tactics to the Minutemen of Lexington and Concord than to the U.S. Army of 1918. Day and night the struggle continued, the Germans holding stubbornly to the sections of trench they had entered, only to be fiercely assailed by the Americans who, in turn, would be checked by well-placed hostile artillery fire. It was a fight of sections and platoons, in a tangle of broken trenches, twisted wire and thick underbrush, where organized control was difficult and unified direction impossible, where individual grit and fighting ability counted for everything. There were many brave men at Bois Brûlé, but one of the bravest was a non-combatant. Reverend John Duvall, the Catholic chaplain for the 104th Infantry, literally lived in no man's land for 4 days during the fighting. He cared for the wounded, often carrying them to safety on his back, gave solace to the dying regardless of faith, and manned a stretcher. When his hands lacked strength, he tied the stretcher to his wrists with wire. With bleeding wrists and suffering from gas exposure, he crawled back into no man's land again and again. For his heroism, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. When the fight ended, the Americans had suffered 37 dead and 75 wounded, but had regained their trenches and captured 36 prisoners. Acknowledging the bravery of the Americans, the French decorated the colors of the 104th Infantry Regiment with the Croix de Guerre. This was the first time in history that an American military unit was decorated by a foreign power. That decorated flag is still displayed in the Massachusetts State House in Boston. After the war, the citizens of Holyoke, Massachusetts, raised 300,000 francs to help rebuild the village of Apremont. The village square was renamed and a fountain dedicated. Holyoke's own National Guard Company D had been part of the 104th Infantry Regiment that fought at Bois Brûlés. A week after the fight near Apremont, the Germans struck again. This time the attack was 10 miles to the east of Apremont at the small village of Seicheprey. Seicheprey was near the American frontline trenches. The destroyed town was held by approximately 400 men. The men were of the 102nd Infantry Regiment, formerly the Connecticut National Guard. The main body of American troops occupied second-line trenches about a mile behind the village. Seicheprey was literally an indefensible outpost. The sector was relatively quiet, with sporadic artillery fire and both sides making small trench raids. Then on April 20th, things changed. Early in the morning, at 3:05 a.m., the Germans unleashed Operation Kirschblüte, or Cherry Blossom, a massive bombardment of high-explosive shells, shrapnel, and gas shells targeted areas behind Seicheprey, isolating the village. The Americans fought courageously, but were outgunned and outnumbered. By mid-morning, it was over. Only 30 Americans escaped the village. The men from Connecticut had fought bravely, but they had been ordered to hold an indefensible position. They had paid dearly.
The first really major engagement of the Yankee Division is in mid-April 1918 at Seicheprey. The Germans had come up with new tactics by 1918 and new units. They have a new organization called the Stormtroopers. The mission of the Stormtroopers was to find what they thought was a weak area of the Allied line and punch through, bypassing any machine gun nests or any kind of stronghold. The purpose was to continue into the enemy's rear as far as they could go. That night, the German Stormtroopers hit the 102nd, punched through, capturing a number of Yankee Division soldiers, killing and wounding many. But after a while, the Yankee Division and the Connecticut troops regrouped. They held the line, came back, and as the Germans were withdrawing, they inflicted as many casualties on the Germans as the Germans had inflicted on the Yankee Division. So it was a steep learning curve, but the Yankee Division learned a lot about what happened that evening and now knew how to fight the Germans.
After the affair at Seicheprey, the sector held by the Yankee Division became relatively quiet, fighting being restricted to trench raids and intermittent artillery duels.
Okay, I want you to know that he's a friend of yours, right? Brigadier General
He's a friend of the
Konrachek. See here?
He's spoken to us 4 times, yes.
He was invited,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
didn't show up. That's too bad. Well, anyway, I just want you to know that Brigadier General Konrachek knows way more about World War I than I'll ever know. But that's okay. I still try really hard to get into it. He's a really amazing guy. Amazing guy. He's been there, done it. That guy.
He's also a horseman.
Yeah, he's a
And he's a member of the National Lancers,
That's right.
and that's why he's not here
Well,
today.
okay. Well, good luck to him.
Something with the Lancers.
I just want to give him a mention, because I'm going to throw a little hello to him. He's probably the most distinguished guy, I know, from all of us, at least for me, anyway.
Trenches.
Okay, the last battle was at Saint Mihiel. Maybe Saint Mihiel was a critical battle And we did that, we did that very well. Now, here's what's interesting. It's the first large offensive by the United States Army in World War I, September 12th to 16th, 1918. Salient means a bulge 25 miles wide and 50 miles deep. I've been to that. It's also like up in the, it's like 4 or 5 feet in the air. It's kind of like a sponge, big sponge. I've been to that place. And it's the largest assembly of soldiers since the American Civil War. It was the last big battle. And it was a big victory for us, for the Yankee Division. We lost 7,000 people, casualties. Well, not lost, casualties is death or wounded. But the Germans lost 17,500 casualties, plus 10,000 captures. So we did them in, baby. That's the last battle. So we went out flying. And I have so much pride in the Yankee Division for doing that. Okay, now I've been to this place. It's the most moving thing. There's a little mountain there by Mount Sec. I sat in that place. I loved it. And this is, I'm just throwing this in. This is a quick review. Amiens, remember Amiens, Apremont, Belleau-Wood, and Seicheprey. Just a few videos that I took. Oh, now this is the end of the war. End of the war is very interesting. I have been in the military and I know about strategy. Strategy is important. Sometimes strategy is about faking people up, doing things that are unexpected for benefit. So what happened in Meuse Argonne is that we decided this is where John Pershing got it right. Germans, he said, why don't we take these super successful men from Massachusetts, not from New England, Yankee Division. Let's make them all go to Metz. What the hell? There's nothing in, well, Metz, anybody been to Metz? Gorgeous place. It's right next to Nuremberg and Belgium and Germany. It's a rich place. In fact, I want to go next week. It's so beautiful. But Metz was there's nothing going on in Metz. It was a fake. It was a feint. This is a classic strategy. So we took the entire Yankee Division and made them go into Metz where there's no war. Well, the damn Germans were freaked out. So the whole lot of Germans, soldiers were sent down there. What the hell's going on? Well, it was a strategy to draw the Germans away from the main story, which is north on Meuse Argonne. Classic, beautiful thing. Had they had those people, they might have won. Well, the Germans might have won. This is one of those classic military. You do something that's phony, and you fake everybody out. It was the biggest fake job ever. See, this is why I give Pershing credit. All right. Okay, the feint succeeds. It worked. The damn feint worked. A whole bunch of Germans went back towards Germany. No, that's the wrong way to go. You're supposed to go up. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this is the same. This repeats the same thing. The Meuse Argonne offensive was a mess. It was slow. It was a combination of horses and tanks and trucks and just barely. It took a long time to get up to from October 18th to November 11th to finally get to the German border. But it was a slog. It was slow, but eventually they won. Okay. Now this is. I'm into psychology lately. This is one of the most tragic things I've ever seen. These are major leadership irony between General John Pershing and General Clarence Edwards. I think they were both terrific. I think they were both solid, hard-working guys who did the right thing most of the time. But somehow, General Edwards, this is the scene where he's now fired, gone. Fired. Why? Why is he firing him? We don't know. This is the best kept secret in the world. Was Pershing so insecure that he had to throw one of his best generals out the window? I never got that. Anyway, you psychology people can help me out with this. It's an ego thing. I think. I don't know. What do you think? You don't know. I just thought it was weird. one of his best generals is just thrown out the window. That's too bad. Okay, I'm gonna end up by, okay, we have to, oh, by the way, if anybody of you go, take route, forget, near Fresh Pond, in Arlington, George Delboy was one of the, famous, Medal of Honor winners, and the guy named Perkins from Mattapan, Mass. Okay, and then, this is the fun one. Have a little fun with this one. Okay. Oh, by the way, it's still
The Salvation Army arrived and set up kitchens near the front. 2 items were on the menu: pies.
Salvation Army arrived and set up kitchens near the front. 2 items were on the menu: pies and donuts. Donuts originated on the Western Front in a Salvation Army field kitchen.
Cigarettes.
The YMCA set up tents with cigarettes and wrote letters
It
home.
was under the auspices of the YMCA.
It was under the auspices of the YMCA that vaudeville arrived at the front.
The star of the show was Elsie Janis.
The star of the show was Elsie Janis. The 28-year-old Miss Janis was a celebrated musical comedy star who was well known both in Europe and America. Using her fame and connections to cut through American and French military red tape and her own money to fund the tour, Miss Janis, her mother, and her accompanist left Paris in early May 1918. Passing through the ruins of Verdun, they continued toward the Saint-Mihiel salient and the trenches held by the Yankee Division. On May 21st, a few miles behind Seicheprey, Miss Janis gave the first of her many performances to very enthusiastic doughboys.
Elsie Janis became known as the sweetheart.
Elsie Janis became known as the sweetheart of the American Expeditionary Force. But as she said in her memoirs, the Yankee Division was her pet division. The men renamed the division in her honor. Captain A.L. Ford served as her YD liaison officer.
I know I'm a little bit over enthusiastic about the Yankee Division, but I can't help it. But I was an officer in the Yankee Division. Oh, I'm proud. Okay, this is the last chapter. This is the total number of losses: killed, wounded, severely, slightly gassed, missing prisoners, 11,509, and KIA severely wounded 5,000. So we paid our price for sure.
On November 11th, 1918, at 5:45 a.m., a Yankee Division radio man picked up a message transmitted from the Eiffel Tower in Paris that the war would end at 11 that morning. The armistice had been signed. A motorcycle courier carried the message to division headquarters. The war would soon be over. At 10:30 that morning, in the last half hour of the war, the Yankee Division was ordered to attack German positions near the village of Flaba. German soldiers looked on in disbelief as the Americans charged. The attack was pointless, the casualties unnecessary. Private Connell Albertine recalled the last half hour of the war to end all wars.
A soldier by the name of Jerrier had been mortally wounded. By the time we got him on the litter and were trying to get him to more safe cover, he had died. Chaplain Duval administered the last rites of the church. Without any other ceremonies, we began to dig a shallow grave with our bayonets so we could at least bury him.
The war ended minutes later. Quiet had finally come to the Western Front.
Okay,
The Yankee Division returned to New England in April of 1919. But not all its men returned. More than 2,000 behind, buried in shallow graves, scattered across the French countryside. In the post-war years, American battlefield graves were exhumed and the remains either sent home if the family wished, or moved to military cemeteries. In the Argonne, the bodies were moved to the Murs Argonne Cemetery. It grew to be the largest American military cemetery in Europe. It contains over 14,000 First World War graves and covers 130 acres. The endless ranks of white crosses and stars of David filled the landscape in every direction. Every American Memorial Day, the cemetery is the setting for ceremonies expressing France's gratitude. Every grave is marked with both an American and a French flag. The houses in the nearby villages are decorated with American flags. In a somber ceremony set among the marble gravestones, American and French military and civilians honor the American men and women who perished in the Great War. They died in France, driving an enemy from French soil, and France remembers.
Okay. Okay, now you gotta sing. Gotta go out singing. Okay, okay. Come on, what happened here? Okay, I want to say one thing about cemeteries. I spent many, many hours, every time for 10 years, I went to France, well, 3 or 4 times a year. I'd walk 4 or 5 cemeteries. Walking a cemetery is a deep, deep thing. As you walk there, especially when I'm French, I would be in a French cemetery and I'd read the French names of the 17-year-old boys that died. You do that for an hour and I call it an existential experience. You begin to absorb these young boys. I can't tell you how many, and also people knew I was American. I was taller, I had funny clothes, nice clothes, expensive clothes. And they'd come to me, they'd hug me over and over for years. Merci beaucoup, monsieur, for saving us from the Germans. I cannot tell you how many times I've experienced that. It was one of the most moving things I've ever experienced. And it made it worth doing. Oh, by the way, I'm going to end with one thing. Check out Belle Skinner. Belle Skinner on, what do you call it? Something.com. Wikipedia. Go to wikipedia.com. Check her out. You're going to love it. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, this whole thing will be about the smoke.
Okay, we have time for Q&A. And please be sure that you use the microphone when you ask your question so that it's picked up for our Zoom audience. Okay?
Yeah, go.
Dan, tell us a little bit about Belle Skinner.
Okay, Belle Skinner was the wife of the richest man in that part of Massachusetts. The city was Holyoke. Mass was before the war. It changed after the Depression, but before the Depression, it was one of the biggest industries there was. And what changed everything is when women started buying clothes that said made in China. That was the end of that place. But for a while, she was the queen of the place. But she was a very brilliant person who cared about people. And she's the one who went to France and built this big hotel. I'll show you the hotel in Chicago one. Anyway, she wound up dying in Paris. Duh. Can you imagine that? One stupid. Okay, this is Holyoke, Mass. This is where it was. This is the factory where they all worked. And this is Hardened Chateau. How about that for a little vacation? If you want to go, it's about a maybe a 10-hour ride from Paris, straight from home, and stay in the Belle Skinner suite. That's my goal is before I die, I want to get to that damn Belle Skinner suite. It's beautiful. She built that. She had a lot of money. Okay, that's it. Okay, so here's a little ad for something coming up. Okay. Thank you very much.
So I've got a question. We were in the car and you were telling me about the feud or the rift between General Edwards and General Patton. The one you thought was more creative and inspirational. The other was more by the book, and both were valuable and both were needed, and together they made a great pair. However, you gave an example of when General Edwards, who really liked talking to the troops, dealing with the troops, happened to have an occasion where he was talking to some very young German
Yeah,
prisoners of war. He thought, what the heck, they're 18-year-old kids. I think I'll talk to them and find out what they're all about. And General Patton was furious.
yeah,
Huh?
Yeah.
You don't do that.
yeah, yeah.
So
I understand that.
do you think, so talk more about that. Do you think that is what led to the rift?
Well, I have mixed feelings about it. I think I'm a Christian, on a good day. Not always. But you're supposed to love the enemy, right? You're supposed to, these poor kids are dying, and they're the enemy. Well, okay. I don't think it's a bad thing to show Christian kindness to somebody who yesterday was shooting at you. I don't know. I'm a little bit sketchy about that. I've a Catholic wife who tells me all this stuff.
But he was abruptly terminated, right?
What?
One of the things I take from your talk is that the Americans and the French never fought together. They never fought side by side.
Right.
Who made those decisions as to who fought where?
Good question. I'll tell you who it is. When John
Pershing.
when Pershing came in, the French said, "We want you to work with us. We want to take your American boys and shove small units in between." He said, "No, absolutely not. We're going to fight as an American unit. I won't put up with that." And he said, "I'm sorry." And he went to Wilson. No way I'm doing that. Well, my philosophy is right. So that's the answer. The answer is that was John Pershing's decision. I ain't going to separate myself with them because the French, occasionally screwed up. I ain't going to screw up.
And where was Marshal Pétain in all this? Where does he fit in? The great victor of Verdun.
Pétain is a complicated issue. Very sad. Because I'm an artillery guy. He's the great artillery guy. He's the guy who created the piece of artillery that was so successful. And he was the champion of Verdun. Verdun was a stalemate between big guns and regular guns. And at the end, he won. He was better. He was a hero, but he was a funny hero. Yeah, he was I can tell funny stories about him. Pétain was a woman's man. When he was called from the east, from the west, when he came across, they couldn't find him. Well, he was in a place of ill repute. His girlfriend went, what do you mean? In the middle of the night, they're dragging you out. But he has a sense of humor. He was a human being. Okay, so Pétain was good. But okay, so here's the problem with Pétain. This is the great tragedy of Pétain. World War II, what happens? Hitler takes over. Well, Vichy France is put under the control of Pétain. So what does Pétain do? He agrees with Hitler to get all the Jews and get them out. What a way to end. What an inglorious way to end your life. One of the great heroes. It's interesting how people like, I don't know what the lesson there is, but okay.
Anything on Zoom? No. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Dan again. And back to you, Bruce.
They have a couple of announcements before you leave. The first thing is that on May 5th, there's going to be a presentation by Karen Tyler, the Veteran Services Officer, about PTSD. It'll be held in Bedford. You'll get more information on this at our next presentation, and there'll be flyers coming out. But if you're interested in this, it's about a way of treating PTSD with different types of drugs. So very interesting. It's currently a Netflix documentary as well. It's the title of it is In Waves and War. If you're interested in that, that's on May 5th. Karen Tyler will host a presentation. On Saturday, April 18th, Patriots Day, this is a chance for veterans to participate in the parade again. Linda is organizing veterans to ride in classic cars. No, you don't have to march, you just ride in the car and wave to the crowds. She sent out an email you should have received today about how to sign up for that. If you have any questions, please see Linda about it. And then the last thing I have is that our next presentation will be Monday, April 13th. It'll be Richard Bell talking about the American Revolution and the fate of the world. Extremely interesting discussion on how the revolution changed country relations throughout the world. Richard does an excellent job on this. So that's Monday, May 13th. Thank you very much for attending. Appreciate it. Any other questions?
Zoom
Yes.
or here?
For Richard Bell will be he's Zooming.
No,
He's gonna be here.
he's, Richard Bell is one of the foremost experts on the Revolutionary War. This book he has written, he insists, his write-up insists, is revolutionary because his premise is the Revolutionary War in America changed the world, the way the entire world is set up, governs itself and everything. And he goes through step by step to prove how everything on the globe got shaken up as a result. He's on a book tour. He was thrilled to choose the Lexington veterans as a stop on his book tour. He will be here in person. We're thrilled to have him next month. You absolutely have to make this a stop on your personal tour.
He's gonna bring his books?
Oh, I think he'll have books for sale. Oh, yes.
Do you know what they sell for?
He'll be thrilled to sell them.
The selling price,
I
Where
do
to go
not
on
know the
Amazon
selling
and
price.
find out.
because the more you go up, the fewer you sell.
Oh, yeah.
I have one final comment about Lexington.
it closer.
It was because of Lexington that we have two things, freedom of speech and freedom of religion.
Hold the mic.
Oh. The biggest thing that came out of Lexington was freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Or you don't have to have religion, it's your choice. Not many countries have that. Look what's happening in the Middle East right now. They're killing each other over religion. That's my two cents. So let's hear it for Lexington.
Thank you very much.
Okay.